to True Print for Life podcast. This is your co-host, Maylin and Sambois.
And your host, Christina Vera. Super excited to join you all today. We have an amazing guest that we're excited to have on our show just to talk more about her journey, her inspirational journey, her community advocacy, leadership, two-time author, mother. I mean, you know, if you've been following the True Print for Life podcast for a period of time, we search high and low to bring you the best of the best. And tonight or today is no short of that. And so we are excited to have Rep Humphrey here with us today to talk about her journey. And so Rep Humphrey, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly a privilege and honor to be here with you all today.
Thank you. And so just like seeing everything that you've done, you know, you're a Columbus native here, East High graduate, yes, and you're very, very passionate about community, which I think was very, you know, just as normal, everyday community people, like, you know, you read about elected officials, you read about leadership, and you always have this like kind of like this visualization of like who fits in that, like what does that look like. And what I loved about you is just the authentic self that you are. Like, you're very transparent about who you are, your upbringing, and I would love to learn more about just like, where does that come from?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. It's so jam-packed actually, because I could answer it in a million different ways, but I will say I think the passion just really comes from how I was raised. One of the things I tell people is, look, I didn't have a perfect childhood, but I had a pretty good childhood, and a childhood instilled with morals and ethics and how you should do things and how you should look out for people, what's wrong, what's right, what's appropriate, what's not. And sometimes that can kind of put boundaries on us, but I think that it developed me to be who I am today. And so I give all that to my mother, because she isn't a perfect person, but she was a perfect mother for me, because if it had not been for her, I wouldn't be an author, I wouldn't be a state rep, I wouldn't be a good mom, I wouldn't be a lot of things. But because of what she taught me, I can say that I am very confident in who I am, very confident in my leadership, because of how she raised me. And that was to be someone who, one, listens to God, and knows that he orders and directs every step I take, and know that I wouldn't be here without him. And literally, like, if I could really be honest, even about my journey of becoming a state rep, if it had not been for the Lord,
right,
I wouldn't be here. And I think I shared that with you before. There's no way. But it was my mother who kind of just instilled this inspiration and love for people, to be the type of servant leader that I am. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning the ropes. But I would say that I'm doing a pretty good job, and I give that to the Lord and to my mother.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, you know that now, right? At your age, which is the way you said that, we can all relate, right, to that. But growing up, though, what was your thinking? Like, did you realize this was happening? Were you having a struggle with the way that you were being brought up?
No, that's a good question. When I was younger, I'll say, so that's a hard question to answer, because my life is like, at one point, it was like almost perfect, right? What some people would say. And then as I got older, things began to change. And so it wasn't the same. And I'll just kind of break it down, quickly. When I was younger, we were very deep into the church. My mom became a licensed minister, I believe, in 1997. And so, like, I didn't have a problem with it. I was like 5. So this was what I knew as life. So I didn't have a problem with structure and her leading and helping guide me in a way, because I was young. I didn't really know the difference. And she wasn't that strict, like Bible beaten type mom. It was just structure. She didn't have a problem with me going across the street to my friends or spending the night. She wasn't like that. But I just knew that there was a certain way that we lived our lives. And so I respected that. Now, when I got older, it was different. I turned 13, and my mom began, actually, after she got some type of surgery, she like changed, and then she started dealing with drug addiction, something she dealt with a long time ago prior to 1997. But then my life changed, and then at that point she was in my life, but she wasn't. I had lived with my aunt, and my aunt raised me from, I believe, 2006 until I graduated in 2010, 2005 to 2010. So my life just dramatically changed. And so she was there, she raised me in such a way, but when she left at that point, it was like that structure wasn't there anymore. Now my aunt was church going and all of that, but it was a lot more free will. And so I thank God for what my mom taught me before I went to go live with my aunt. My aunt was phenomenal and allowed me to understand that whatever my mother was going through in her mind was, I'm gonna be real, she would say, that's a spirit, that's not your mom. And so I just kind of kept the morals that I got from my mom and going into my own career and in my own passion and things like that. But that it took me a longer time to figure out what my purpose was because the structure wasn't there anymore. Yeah. So I really didn't figure out that I wanted to be a politician or I wanted to do X, Y, and Z until, 2014. Wow. And so it's like I said, it's just a lot to unpack there. But the lessons she taught me at a young age have stuck with me. But during that period from, like I said, 2005, 2010, and really beyond, it was kind of tough because I didn't have that structure anymore. So to answer your question, like you said, did you always understand it? I'll say yes, but then when you don't have that hand on you, you kind of spiral out. And not to say that I spiraled out, but I do believe that my life probably would be a lot further had that not have happened. But we know all things work together for the good. So it worked out. But it was tough. So
yeah, and it goes back to like what you were saying earlier. It's like having consistent support. Not necessarily that doesn't mean you can never be successful or have things, but it does make a difference when you don't have that. It's ironically right before I came here today, I was there's some documentary coming out about some football player. I don't know a lot about football, so if you're a football,
don't get upset.
Don't be offended by this comment. I didn't know who it was, but this gentleman just won a Super Bowl, and he was actually working at a supermarket and was recruited as like a full adult to go play for an NFL team, and they actually won a Super Bowl as a quarterback. Wow. And I said, and Ken was just like, it's just so crazy. Like, this guy was working at a supermarket bagging groceries, and and then before he knew it, he was a quarterback for the NFL, and he never played like professionally ever. But I said, you think about all the people that have talent, all the people that have this like hidden, greatness inside of them. But if they don't have somebody there to cultivate that and to say, listen, you could go do this, then how many people just die with that talent or never are able to reach their full potential. So for you and your journey, like obviously you said around 2014 is really when you started thinking about like, okay, like this might be a realm of service that I want to get into. Was there an individual? What was it that finally at that stage in your mind that you started thinking about, like, you know what, I think I want to be the people's servant. I think I want to be a political servant.
Yeah. So it kind of stemmed from I think it was a political science like 101, one of those introductory classes at Ohio State Newark. And I will never forget this professor because he is the reason why I got into politics. He was, I would say crazy, but he was something else. But his name is Professor William T. Dower. And in his class, we start talking about civil rights, and we were talking about political dynamics and things like that. And at first, when I started going to school, I wanted to get into criminal justice. But when I got to his class, it just changed, and I learned so much from him. And believe it or not, like, I know this isn't a political, podcast, but I'm a diehard Democrat, and he was a diehard Republican even at that time. But he inspired me in such a way, and he taught us so much, and he allowed us to be hands-on, so much so that I still have friends from that class even today. But at that point, it changed, and I was like, I want to be a politician. Now, I graduated from East High School. I love East High School and all that, but we don't be really knowing the dynamics of things. But I was like, I want to be a politician. I don't know what it entails, but this is what I want to do. And from that point, this is when, for me at least, YouTube became really prominent. So I was like, okay, if I want to do this, how do I learn? And so what I began to do is I got on YouTube and I started studying Black leaders because I wanted to study somebody who looked like me.
Right.
So, I found out about Senator Nina Turner and Senator Brown from Chicago and C.J. McClellan and all these different leaders that really, inspired me to be great. And I started studying different leadership strategies. I started studying Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and just so many different leaders. And I would watch them on YouTube, find articles, find books, and I would just continue to just kind of try to figure it out. And how I started my journey really in politics was during the Flint water crisis in Flint, Michigan, 45 minutes away from Detroit. This was going on, and this is now into 2015, but this was going on. And so what I did was I took my tax refund, and I'm like, you know what? Take my tax refund, I'm going to service my car, and I'm going to drive back and forth to Flint, and I'm going to help out there. Because I seen on Council President Hardin's page, because at this time I'm just navigating, trying to figure out who's who, what's what, looking on Wikipedia. And so I found his page on Instagram, and I'm scrolling through, and he does not even know this story. But I'm scrolling through on Instagram, and I seen a post that said, all good leaders serve. And then the situation with Flint water crisis came up, and I said, that's my way. That's how I'm gonna do it. And so I drove back and forth for 6 months, helped out there, helped with data entry, would go feed folks at the food kitchens. I did that bi-weekly, like I said, for 6 months. And then I came here and I would go help at the YWCA and the YMCA, painting walls, reading the kids, whatever I could do. Then I was like, well, all good leaders serve, but now I need that political experience. So I found out about the Franklin County Democratic Party. So I started registering folks to vote. Then I found out about those Democratic clubs, Franklin County Young Dems, Central Ohio Young Black Dems. I joined both of those organizations, and I just got to work. And I always showed up, and I was always there. Eventually State Representative Jarrell's, he was president of the Ohio Young Black Dems. And so he came up to me, he's like, I'm always seeing you, and I'm proud of you. Let's have a meeting. And we met, and he was like, how would you feel about being, either my vice president of the Ohio Young Black Democrats or my secretary? Now, mind you, I don't really have any political experience beyond what I've been studying on YouTube, so I'm like, I'll be a secretary, but you gotta coach me, you gotta train me through. And he did. And fast forward, there's some stuff that happened with the Central Ohio Young Black Democrats here in Columbus. And, they were like, you know what, we probably need to get Latyna down here to become our president. And so in 2018, I stepped in and I was appointed as the first female president of the Central Ohio Young Black Dems. Wow. And I stayed there up until I was appointed on October 31st, or 13th, 2021. But really, my political journey started by serving others, and making myself available. But it wasn't easy. I don't have this, political dynasty or really the education that says she should be an elected official. But what I did do is I showed them that this is what happens when you put people who serve in positions of power. But yeah, my journey is definitely not like a lot of people's, but I'm proud of it.
Yeah, so. We're proud just to listen to that, and you driving back and forth to Flint, and that's what it's about. It's about elected officials that really put people first at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people have seen your leadership style as a servant leader, and I think that's why the community continues to rally around you as a great leader. And there's so much still to come, right, with that.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah. And I know you're also an author, right?
Yep.
So share with us a little bit. I mean, you say you don't have all this like education and experience, but you got 2 books out, right?
Look, because I don't take no for an answer. These people not gonna tell me what I'm qualified to do. But no, so I have 2 books. First book is called Girl, You Can Do This, I Did. And this book is really pivotal. A lot of people are like, oh, we want to buy your new book. And I'm like, nah, like, obviously I want your money. I want your coins, whatever. But like, really, you need to buy Girl, You Can Do This, I Did, because then you can see how I became successful outside of the societal norms. And so in this book, I talk about how do you have a daily routine? How do you manage your money? You know, how are you empowering yourself? How do you take care of yourself? And I talk about literally my journey to becoming, I guess, what you would call successful. And I talk about, you know, driving back and forth to Flint, how, you know, my family was like, why are you doing this? What are you doing? Why do you keep putting all these miles on your car? Like, it's not safe. Like, you don't know nobody out there. Like, why do you keep doing this? You know, my sister, I still want to just pop her for this day. But she was like, you got some boyfriend out there. Why you keep driving? I'm like, ma'am, I'm just doing what the Lord called me to do. And so you don't understand it. But I do. But in the book, I literally talk about how I became successful. And it was really dedication, commitment, and consistency, and taking care of myself and really trying to manage my finances. And it just is a guidebook of how I did what I did. And I still, like, I cannot stand school. But if you can stay in a routine, I think you can become successful. And so that's what I talk about in that book. I also talk a little bit about my struggles with anxiety and depression. For a long time, I didn't really think I had it until I realized, like, you really be tripping. Like, you think it's okay to, like, not lash out, but like freak out the way you do. And it took a while until I started working with a therapist and stuff like that to be like, this anxiety is deep, and it has been deep for a long time. Like, I had a social studies teacher who told me, she's like, you worry a lot. And before, I thought I was just worrying until I realized, like, yo, that's anxiety. And that was probably like in 7th grade when she said that. But long story short, I talk about that in the Girl, You Can Do This, I Did. But 96 Days of Gratitude, which is my second book, it came out actually in July. That's where I tell people, like, look, 96 days of gratitude, but some days we fall short is the title. And so in that book, it just lets people know, like, you're going to have bad days. Every day you're not going to be grateful. Every day you're not going to want to get up. Every day you're not going to want to go do great things. But in this book, you get to, 1, journal out your experiences. 2, it explains why it's okay that you don't have a great, fantastic day every day. And it gets to, like, the heart and the soul of the reader. So I really enjoy that book. But my first book is, like, really my baby. And I tell people, like, you probably should buy Girl, You Can Do This before you buy the other book, because it just talks a little bit more to the soul. And it's a routine. Like, because people ask me all the time, how did you become successful? And it's like, no, I put it in this little 70-page book.
Right. You want to know? You don't gotta take me to coffee. Just buy the book.
Yeah. Like,
just
really,
buy the book.
Yeah.
That's a great idea of how, because people always ask us similar questions about how things happen. But I love that you put it as a guide, because you're not going to be able to talk to every person, right?
Yeah.
And you want to touch as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So I love that you did that. I'm like, I wrote it down. I want to make sure. Because I love routines. Like you said routine, I was like, yes, I'm a geek for routines.
Yeah.
I think they really help you. And I can see how they really would be beneficial to you. So we're definitely going to put that as everyone that's listening, please get the book. So can you tell us again the name of the book?
It's Girl, You Can Do This, I Did. The other book is called 96 Days of Gratitude, but some days we fall short. Both books can be bought, I'm going to say this real quick, at www.LatynaMHumphrey.com.
Excellent. And that will be on all of our platforms, so don't worry, you'll catch that in case you didn't write it fast enough. That is awesome. So you've been in this journey. You came from, what we call, some people could say the hood.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said a couple of times, even in our conversations before this, that you don't look or have the credentials of a typical politician, right? Mm-hmm. And for us, we feel like that is probably one of the biggest gifts that you have, is that you don't look like, or have the credentials of other people, because our young people need to see people like
yeah.
them,
Yeah.
right, serving and helping like that. So have you had conversations with young people, that were very, for you, like, I will never forget this conversation when they saw you had a conversation about your journey that you feel that inspired them?
Oh yeah, man. On multiple occasions, I didn't say this, but I am a nationally known speaker as well, and so one of my favorite things to do is to talk to children. I love talking to women, love talking to adults, but I do sincerely believe children are our future, and I know we all say it, but I really believe that, and I think sharing my experiences with them, coming from Trevor Heights, especially if you're from Columbus,
Right.
I mean, there was just recently a gang sweep where I grew up, and not to say that I'm proud of it, but just to let people know, like, no, this is where I grew up,
Right.
and where I'm proud to be from, because not a lot of people, make it out. But I love talking to children because I want them to know, as you said, you've already explained it, that if I can do it, they can do it too. I grew up on the Near East Side. My mother struggled with drug addiction. I had my son at 19 years old. Like, if they hear these things, they'll know that they can succeed too. Even to that young mother. Look, I had Jordan at 19, and my son also suffers from behavioral issues. Like, to the point where the boy, like, literally has jumped out a window at school. It wasn't a high window, but like, why? Like, those were the things that I dealt with, even while trying to become successful. And so when I share these things with them and I get personal with them, they begin to see themselves in me, and know that they can become successful too, because I enjoy not having the background of so and so. I like being who I am because I can empower more people to be who they want to be. And here's the thing, you want to be quite honest, it also creates more supporters,
Yeah.
right? Because they see themselves in you.
Yeah.
So I love talking to children. I love talking to children, so much so a lot of them, they come to the State House, I speak to them. I was going to schools even before I got to the State House, talking to children, traveling across the country, talking to children, and I have those relationships on Instagram and stuff like that, and they'll reach out and they'll say, hey, how you doing? This is what we're doing today. You like my outfit? Like, those are the type of relationships I love, because one, they respect me because they know I respect them,
Right.
and I care about them. And I think that's what children need today. But to answer your question, I think people see themselves in me, young people see themselves in me, and it inspires them to know no matter what I go through, no matter what I've been through, I can still be successful. And the way to become successful is by being consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and I love that you said that, because I think it's so true, and it's so fitting to be able, especially now when we see such a generation of young people who I really feel like are trying to find themselves in a whole different world. And a lot of it is because of this technology and all the things that have been presented to young people so early on. But in your thoughts and kind of in your experience, as we see, like, we still see a huge shortage of women in leadership. We still see a shortage of women of color, specifically in leadership positions, whether it be Fortune 500 companies, political arenas. We're still dealing with pay gap, as everyone knows. And so what are your thoughts as to, why are women not necessarily getting involved at the higher rate as white males, as we see? Because I think a lot of people have asked me, like, just in the running process, I was like, this ain't for the faint of heart, for starters, because running for office is, I mean, it takes courage to do what you have done and what you continue to do, especially leading on such a large, State House. I mean, that's a whole different arena,
Right.
And so I think a lot of people don't fully understand, like, what all that entails, and then just being, like, kind of on public display at all times. But what are your thoughts as to, like, do you think we can ever move in a direction where we will see more women, or, like, what do we need to do to kind of get that ball rolling so that we can have real equal representation across the board?
Oh, well, thank you for the question. I think I probably would have answered it in a way that you answered it. I can only really speak for the political arena. I would say, as you said, running for office is not easy. And There's a lot of things that you go through. It's a lot of things that people want from you. And it's hard to run for office when you're a woman and a mother.
Yeah.
And a caretaker. And if you're a wife, that's hard. And so unless you have the structure and the foundation of support needed, you probably likely are not going to run for office. Because if running for office means I'm sacrificing a relationship with my children, if running for office means I'm sacrificing a relationship with my husband, if running for office means that I'm a caretaker for my mother, and that means I take away time from my mother, should I really run for office?
Yeah.
And so these are all the questions that women have to ask themselves. Lots of times, men, including Black men, don't necessarily have to answer the questions in the extent that women do. And so I think that is a big piece. Now, not to mention, when you do decide to run for office, then you got to deal with all that I mentioned, the whole foundation and your familiar structure and all that. Then you got people who need you on the outside. Well, Representative, my water hasn't been working for three days and I paid the bill. What's going on? They're not answering me. Or I've reached out to PUA, ODJFS a million times and I still haven't got my funds. And all these people want something from you.
Right.
And you got to be in a place spiritually that you can say, all right, I got this and I can do this and I can separate the two and I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And lots of times women are smart enough to be like, you know what, I ain't doing it.
Yeah.
Now, if I need to volunteer on weekends, then that's what I'll do. That's how I'll show up for my community. If I need to donate to Christina Vera, if I need to donate to Latyna Humphrey because I know they can get it done, then that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to kill myself to try to save the world. And then, not to mention, I'm going to just say this, we're in a super minority. Like, how I'm supposed to pass legislation in a super minority?
Yeah.
You know, so it's just lots of things that, you know, folks really have got to think about, women have got to think about before they decide to run for office. And then there are struggles that come with running for office on top of the things that are going on in your home life. And so I think that that's a big part. And then you also have these struggles, you know, with, you know, it's not a personal experience for me. I have only been in office for 2 months and 6 days at this point. But sometimes there are issues where you struggle, that struggle with men, you know, sometimes, you know, feeling like maybe you're not qualified, maybe you're not capable, things like that. That can be an issue. In my case, it's not. I'm honest. I keep my cards close. I think that's another thing. When you get into office, if you decide to run for office, keep your cards close. And stay to yourself, get your folks, and do what you need to do. Ain't nobody telling you get in office and try to be friends with everybody.
Right.
That's just me being honest.
That's a life tip.
Yeah,
I don't even think it's just about
like,
office. I'm like, that's how you should live your life. But that's a whole nother
get
conversation.
your cards.
Get your cards, pull them close, and mind your business.
Yeah.
Because if you do,
Right?
if you don't do that, then you get pulled in these directions where they're like, oh man, you sure you can do that? You sure? Well, maybe you should run that by. If you want to introduce this bill, run it by so-and-so. You want to do that? No, you ain't even going to know when I'm going to introduce a bill. I'm going to introduce it.
Yeah.
And case in point, not to say that I had any struggles, but I've been in office 2 months. I introduced my first bill. Why? Couldn't nobody stop me. Why? Because didn't nobody know I was doing it. You know? I don't run into these breakdowns with men because you ain't in my business to know what I'm doing. You find out with everybody else when I do it.
Right.
So excited.
Like,
I love that.
keep your cards close and mind your business. The problem is we get in here, and I'm saying we should all be treated equally and treated with equity and all of that. But the reality is you got to be pragmatic. You probably ain't going to be. So when you know what you're up against, you know how to operate. Like, yeah, we should be treated with equity and equality and all of that. But if you don't know what I'm doing, I'm cool. I'm coasting over here. And so that's how I operate. I'm not saying everybody else does, but my cards are closed. You didn't know what I'm going to do next. You just don't, because it ain't your business.
And I think that strategy piece is so key, though, to your point. I think it's just a lot. You know, you see that on social media. People are constantly posting like their every single play. And it's just like, I think if more people would just honestly like find a small circle that's not on the internet for starters. Okay, please do me
that
the
is
favor.
not your circle.
But really, just like some things, just really you don't really need to be announcing constantly, and keep that energy and do what you say you're gonna do. And I think that's the biggest thing that you look for in leadership, you look for in partnership. Because a lot of what you see nowadays is just, there's a lot of flexing. There's a lot of flexing that happens in all kind. And if you don't know what the term flexing means, it's just kind of like the pretend of something. Yeah. And so, I love that you're very transparent and forward about, just kind of your style and your preference. And I think there's power in that. I think when you own who you are, and you can, and also own when you right, when you're not right, that's another part of it. But I mean, just the power and just, knowing who you are, what you bring to the table and how you want to show up to the world every single day. I mean, there's power in that.
Yeah. And I love that you said women really have to think about before they run, right? Like we want so many women to run. I mean, that's one of our goals. Like we want women to run because we need them, but it's not for everybody.
Right.
Right. And then for you made that decision, and that was a hard decision.
Oh man, Christina knows it was a hard decision, just being frank without, being too much. I said no twice.
Oh, okay.
I said no because I'm honest. I'll take care of my son by myself. My son's father's family does help like tremendously, but like his grandmother doesn't have to have a car. So I take him over there and she's on a fixed income. So I provide for her. And becoming an elected official meant that I had to leave my job making $5,000 more. That was a decision I had to make. My son's father is incarcerated for 9 years in a penitentiary. He ain't coming home for a while. So I had to write, and I wanted to think about, what are you doing? I always knew I could do it. It was always something I wanted to do. It was some other things that were in the mix, but then it was also, well, no, I'll say this. I wanted to run for office, had intentions to run for office, but when other things got into the mix, I started to then think pragmatically and say, okay, Tina, you take care of Jordan by yourself. You help his grandmother to do whatever she wants to do, and then you got all your bills, and then you could be taking a pay cut. Are you sure?
Yeah.
And so with all the stuff in the mix and then being pragmatic, I said no twice. But the Lord, I
was gonna say, well, what made you say yes?
Look, because it was crazy. It was all in 1 week. I got a call from somebody, and they were like, Tina, people keep saying your name. People keep saying your name. Like, you probably really should do it. People are saying that if you go, you could win. I'm like, okay. Yeah, I mean, you're telling me something I didn't know. Like, I already knew that, like I know what I've done for community. I know what I've done for the party. I know. And I'm a bad girl, right? So I knew. I'm like, okay. But I'm like, all right. Then somebody else called, said the same thing. I'm like, okay. And it took me actually having a conversation with Dr. Tina Pierce. I seen her at some event, and she took me to the side, and she said, people keep bringing your name up, and I think it's something you should explore.
You sound just like her. Like, I visualize her whole voice when you just said that, Lord.
And so I made a decision. Literally, probably right after that, I called my mom and we walked through it together. And she was like, well, Humphrey, if that's what you want to do, because that's what we do. We call each other by our last name. She's like, Humphrey, if that's what you want to do it. I support you, whatever you want to do. You've done the work. We'll figure it out. And so I made up my decision that day. I made the necessary calls. I got, I don't even want to get into it, but like I made the necessary calls, and from that point on, it was on. Yeah. And so now I'm here. But it wasn't easy. But I'll tell you what, it was more of a mental thing. And see, we got to start realizing that like stuff isn't always as hard as we think it is.
Yeah.
It's always mental.
Right.
Because when I went through that interview process, I'll be real candid with you, and most people who were probably in the room would be too. I killed it. It was nothing. It was easy. Because it's easy when you do the work.
I was going to get done the work, though.
It is easy when you do the work.
Right.
And so breeze through it. And I'm here. But all the mess I went through prior, like just mentally, can you do this? If you don't have this, can you do this?
Yeah.
Are you sure? And it was like, Humphrey, that wasn't even necessary.
Yeah.
Because you killed it.
Yeah.
Like, it was not necessary. So a lot of the things we go through is mental. So we have to start, and this is just me being spiritual, we got to start training ourselves to just relax.
Yeah.
Because it like all that fight was just, I could have just made a decision and went on about my business.
Yeah.
Like after that, like literally didn't have to fight with myself. I didn't have to worry about who was in, who wasn't. I didn't have to do that.
Right.
All I could have did was say, oh, okay, I want to do it, live my life, and interview when it was time.
Yeah.
And so I get frustrated about that a little bit, but it's a learning lesson, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we all do it. We're all our biggest critics.
Yeah.
And it's just, like you said, it really does start with the mental. Like, if you can really wrap your mind around who you are, what you deserve, what you feel you're qualified to do, then I think we can eliminate a lot of just the self, the doubt, the self, like we talk to ourselves in such a way sometimes. Like, I mean, we all do it. We all do it. And I think that the power in what you just said of just like the mental is, that's probably
that's the hardest.
That's the hardest piece.
man, it definitely is. Because I just look back like, girl, all that just was not necessary.
Yeah.
But it's part of the growth, though,
Yeah,
right? Because now next
yeah.
time you're like, okay, last time I went through this and I like worried myself to sleep for no
Yes.
reason. Now I'm just gonna do it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
like
so that was necessary. 828, everything works out.
Yeah.
Right. I love that because you also have to have somebody to help you with the chatter, right? Because there's something in your
Yes.
head. We all have it. Sometimes that voice is so loud, it's hard to quiet. But that's why you need your cards, right? Your people, because some people will help you quiet or help you like see the opposite of what you're thinking. So I think you had those people that even though you were having the internal, they were like, okay, but could you at least think about this? And you have it, and they believe in you.
Yeah.
So to the women that are listening, or men, but this is for you guys with the women. You're gonna have those doubts, and I want them to know that those doubts are absolutely normal. We all have them. And if you can do whatever you want to do, if you choose to do it, and then get the book, because the book has the guide. Now the book is really like, you want to know how to do it, you want to know how to get your finances because you need your finances, then go ahead, right? Get the book and start preparing. And if you need support, you know how to reach out. Rep Humphreys, you know exactly where to find her.
Yeah.
She's available. She's real. She's gonna give you the truth about the whole process. But we really encourage women to run, because that is actually how we're gonna create change. I am really tired of men creating decisions for us when they're not a woman, they don't know our bodies, and they're making decisions that are affecting our girls. And I'm very passionate about our girls. So the fact that people that have no clue how things run are passing laws and doing things is where I'm actually fed up. So even though I personally don't know in the future I will never run, but I'm not running right now, I want to support those that are running. So if you're not ready to run, that's fine. Find women that you can get behind and support them by your finances, by volunteering. That's a big help. I saw it in your campaign, Christina, and I can imagine you needed to have that support too.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely, I like to be honest and transparent. I'll tell you that, I'm gonna tell you, I didn't have the support. I didn't. I had my mom, and I had my aide, and it's a man, Dan McKay, and we put our heads together. He's a former ED of the Franklin County Democratic Party, and see how God works. But he believed in me, and we put our heads together, and we got to work. But it hurt sometimes when you don't have the support at the times that you need it,
right?
When you support everybody else. But I say go forward and find people who will support you. Sometimes people are put in awkward positions where they can't support you in a way in which that they want to. But for me, going through this, it was a lonely road.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lonely road, you know, and that's frustrating. But God is good. But I say find your folks. Now I do have a friend who lives in Detroit, Michigan, who is a political operative who was there from afar. But you talking about somebody who I could just go and cry and just say I'm frustrated. You know, I got to be real about that. I didn't have that. And sometimes women have to be honest about that and say, hey, I didn't have X, Y, and Z. But we have got to learn, even when we don't have the support, to be the support for others.
Right.
Yes.
And so I'm going to commit to doing that to women who want to run for office but don't have the support or the political acumen to be able to move forward. I want to be that support for them because, honestly, I know what it was like.
Yeah.
And you know, some would say, well, it was just appointment process. It was deeper than that. It was deeper than that. It was way deeper than that.
Yeah.
But like I said, I do understand that, like, when I got in there, it was a wrap, you know, but that 3 months up until was tough. And so I can't lie. I got to be honest. I got to be real about that.
Yeah. We thank you for your transparency. And as we're wrapping up today, I feel like I can talk to you forever. Like, there's so much. And hopefully we'll have you back. You know?
Man, would love to.
Yeah,
love to talk about policies and all that.
I know campaign season is going to be starting for you in the new year. And definitely this will just be the beginning of an ongoing, you know, conversation. And not only just conversation, I think, you know, as a newly elected official myself, board member elect, let me say that, you know, I look forward to working alongside of you because we got work to do.
We got work to do.
We got work to do in the district. And I know you're equally passionate about our community and young people. And you know, and in closing today, you know, what would be just if you can say something to young Rep Humphrey, if you could give yourself a bit of advice, now knowing what you know now, what would you tell maybe your 10 or 11-year-old self?
Man, I would say, because I got to come up a little higher, what I would tell 13-year-old Latyna, and I don't want to get emotional, but you're going to do everything that God said you were going to do. And it's not going to take 20, 30 years. You're going to do everything. Just stay focused, stay consistent, stay passionate, and be yourself. And everything you aspire, you will have. Everything I got right now. I didn't imagine I would be here this soon. But God. At 29, youngest elected official in the county. God is good.
Yeah.
So I would tell her, keep pushing. You're going to get it. Everything you ever wanted. I don't want nothing else. This is it. So anything else added is a gift. So anything you want, you're going to have. Just stay focused. And that's it.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, that's just so beautiful and so real. And you know, Latyna, we thank you. We are excited. We celebrate you and all that you have done and everything you will continue to do. And just know that here, you know, True Print, Maylin, and myself, you know, we truly believe in the power of women and the power of leadership. And we're excited to be a part of your journey. So thank you for being here. And until we all see you again, you know, continue to be intentional. Surround yourself with good people, good energy. And in all time, all good things will come. So,
yeah, because we always say, it's bigger than you. Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.